I'm Alan Balter, music director and conductor of the Memphis Symphony Orchestra. All these instruments may seem like a crazy assortment, so many different shapes and sizes, so many different sounds, but they all belong to one of three musical families: the strings, the woodwinds, and the brass. Each instrument has its own special sound, but to understand why, we need to understand something about sound itself. It all starts with vibrations. Every sound in the world comes from something vibrating. Of course, our ears tell us that some vibrations sound better than others. Every musical sound begins with something vibrating and sending sound waves through an instrument, like this. When a musician plays an instrument, new vibrations are added in, then the whole mixture comes out of the instrument and into our ears. But we don't hear just a bunch of vibrations, we hear music. And every musical instrument has its own special mixture of vibrations, its own sound that's totally different from every other, as different as one person's voice is from another's. That unique sound is called its timbre. Each instrument has its own timbre, but within each musical family, you can hear a definite family resemblance. That's because the instruments are built a lot alike, and their sounds come from the same kinds of vibration.
It's easy to see that the string family is related. The violin, viola, cello, and double bass are all made of wood, and they all have the same basic shape. Their sounds come from vibrating strings, and you play different notes by pressing the strings against the instrument's fingerboard. Most of the time, string instruments are played with a bow. It's a curved wooden stick with horsehair stretched tight from end to end, and it can make an amazing variety of sounds. Rubbing the bow smoothly across the strings plays flowing lines. Short strokes make short notes. You can bounce the bow or scrub it across the strings for dramatic moments. You can even turn the bow over and tap the strings with the stick. Or instead of using the bow at all, you can pluck the strings with your fingers, sort of like a guitar. This is called playing pizzicato.
All the members of the string family are shaped alike and played alike, but each one is a different size, and that means that each has a different range, because the smaller an instrument is, the higher it plays.
We know right away that the violin has the highest sound of all the strings because it's the smallest. The viola is a little larger, with longer strings, so it sounds lower. The cello is twice as big as the viola, and it can play twice as low. The double bass is really big, 6 feet tall. It sounds the deepest of all the string instruments.
We usually think of string instruments playing in big symphony orchestras, but they often get together in smaller groups, like the string quartet, 2 violins, a viola, and a cello. Listening to a quartet is a great way to meet the string family. Remember what the string family taught us? The bigger the instrument, the deeper the sound. The smaller the instrument, the higher the sound. Well, that's also true for flutes, clarinets, oboes, and bassoons, the woodwind family. In some ways, all the woodwinds are alike.
Each one is a tube of some kind. When you blow into the tube, vibrating air makes the sound. But a plain old tube will only play one note. Pretty boring. That's why woodwind instruments have lots of holes along the sides. By opening and closing these holes, you can change the vibration in the tube and make all the different notes you need. But to play all those notes, it takes more holes than a person has fingers. These mechanical systems are used so that one finger can work several keys, which open and close the extra holes. All woodwinds are tubes with holes and keys, but they have important differences that give each instrument its special sound, its own timbre. The flute isn't even made of wood anymore. It's metal, usually silver or gold, with one end open and one end closed. To play it, you blow across a hole near the closed end. That starts the vibrations that the flute and the flutist turn into music. Down low, the flute sounds mysterious. As it plays higher, the tone opens up. At the very top, it sounds bright and shiny. The flute's tiny cousin, the piccolo, can play even higher. The clarinet looks and sounds quite different. It's made of wood, and the black finish and silver keys make it easy to recognize. The mouthpiece has a wooden reed clamped to it. When the clarinet player blows into the mouthpiece, the reed vibrates, making the air inside the clarinet vibrate, and the music begins. In the middle of its range, the clarinet sounds warm and round. Up high, it has a singing voice that often carries the melody. When it's played softly or at the bottom of its range, it sounds good playing behind other instruments. From a distance, the oboe looks a lot like the clarinet, but up close, it's easy to tell them apart. The oboe is a little smaller, but the big difference is up here on the blowing end. The oboe has a double reed made of two tiny slivers of wood with a narrow space in between. When the oboe player blows through it, both reeds vibrate together to create the oboe's distinctive voice. In the middle range, its singing voice is good for solos. Up top, it sounds clear and pure. The bassoon also has a double reed, like the oboe, but it looks and sounds quite different. The bassoon is the biggest and deepest sounding of the woodwinds, and because its tube is so long, it also has the most holes and keys. When it plays down low, the bassoon has a big, fat sound. In the middle of its range, its voice is full and rich. In the high register, it sounds almost like a cello.
Like every family of instruments, the woodwinds sound good playing together. And you can really hear that family sound when the flute, the oboe, the clarinet, and the bassoon are joined by the French horn, a visitor from the brass family, to form a woodwind quintet. The French horn sounds great playing with the woodwinds, but it's really a member of the brass family. These instruments are named for the brass metal they're made of and usually have a shiny gold or silver finish. There's the trumpet, the French horn, the trombone, and the tuba, and they have a lot in common.
They are all basically long tubes, like the woodwinds, but brass tubes are so long they're bent into more convenient shapes. And unlike the woodwinds, they don't have keys or reeds. Instead, brass players make their lips work like reeds by pressing them together and blowing a steady stream of air through them. That makes their lips vibrate together like the double reeds of the oboe and bassoon. But air and lips can't make all the notes by themselves, so brass instruments are designed to solve that problem. Imagine that the tubing of a brass instrument is like a street that the vibrations are traveling on. Trumpets, French horns, and tubas have valves that act like detour signs along that street. Each of those valves can send the vibrating air through different parts of the instrument. That makes the trip longer or shorter and changes the notes they make. Using different valve positions and different lip vibrations, a musician can play every note on the scale. The trumpet is the smallest brass instrument, and it has many voices across its wide range. The French horn is wound around in a circle, and it has a mellower sound. You can also change the sound of the French horn by the way you hold your hand down here in the bell. The French horn can play a wide variety of sounds. The tuba is sort of a gigantic bass trumpet. Since it's the largest member of the brass family, it can play very low. But the tuba has many personalities. The trombone is a little different from the rest of the brasses. Instead of using valves to change notes, the length of the trombone's tubing changes by simply sliding back and forth. That makes the vibrating air travel longer or shorter distances through the instrument. Different slide positions, along with changes in the lip vibrations, can produce every note in the instrument's range. The trombone has a full sound. And the slide lets the trombone do things no other brass instrument can do.
You can really hear the musical excitement of the brass family when two trumpets, a French horn, a trombone, and a tuba play together as a brass quintet. The brass quintet, the woodwind quintet, and the string quartet we've seen are great ways to meet these families of instruments. Music is fun to listen to, but it's even more fun when you know the instruments and can pick them out when you hear them. Let's take another look and listen to help us remember.
The violin, the viola, the cello, and the double bass. They are the string family. Here's the flute, the oboe, the clarinet, and the bassoon. They're the woodwinds. You remember the trumpet, the French horn, the trombone, and the tuba. They're the brass family.
The strings, the woodwinds, and the brass can play as many musical sounds as there are colors in the rainbow, and each instrument has its own special magic.